Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
All right, AJ, welcome to our second ever edition of the Church Revitalization Podcast live, and our 33rd episode overall. So, really glad to be here and be doing this with you. And man, we got a great topic today. This is really a critical topic of running virtual small groups. None of us are experts at this right now, and I think this is kind of a fun thing that you and I have put together. Just to be clear, if you're watching this live or listening later, just due to screen recording and stuff like that we wanted to do, we had to pre-record walking through Zoom setup and some of the other things we're going to walk you through today. Anyways, just we're all new to this, I guess is what I want to say, AJ. Even you and I, we're learning new things. We're adapting on the fly.
Yeah. So sometimes you're about to see us live, and sometimes you're going to see us pre-recorded from an hour ago. Right now, we're live.
Right now,
when we come back live.
Yeah. And so, so let me just tell you what we want to do. Really, we're not going to sugarcoat this thing. We want to help you run virtual small groups better. So if you are here, in fact, if you're there's lots of you watching right now. If you are in the comments, if you'll just say, are you having trouble running virtual small groups? So if you have, go ahead and throw that up for me so I know that this is a topic that's critical for you. I know a lot of the pastors I'm talking to right now, they are struggling getting the virtual small groups. So let me introduce some of the tools we're going to use that we're going to walk you through. Really, there's two. One, Zoom. We know there's lots of options out there for group meetings. You could use Google Hangouts. You could use Skype. You could use Microsoft Teams, which is probably just another way of branding Skype. There are other options, but Zoom we feel like is the best option, in particular because of the really neat function of breakout rooms, which we're going to walk you through today. The other tool we're going to walk you through today is a tool called Band, which is completely free. It's a way to form virtual community or groups online and through their app for communication with one another, to do sign-up lists and to-do functions and all kinds of things that you can do, a shared calendar. We're going to show you all of that. So we think that a dual combination between using Zoom for group meetings and using Band for group communication, if you're to use those two tools, your out-of-pocket expense, AJ, is going to be what, $15 a month?
Yeah, that's it.
And you're going to be able to have
more for larger churches. More for larger churches.
Yeah. But or not if you just spread out your meeting times. But you know, for as low as $15 a month, you can have a really robust group strategy online. So we hope that this is really practical for you. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today is how to reach out to folks who aren't already a part of your church, or maybe who have been a part of your church but they've not joined a group, trying to bring them into your small group strategy. So enough introduction. Let's get straight into walking through Zoom. So AJ, a lot of these screen recordings are me talking, so I want to give you a chance. Maybe will you introduce Zoom as a platform for those who are watching who maybe Whoa, could you guys hear me? I just realized I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I could at least.
Oh man. Oh, live. Yeah, I was probably talking to the live thing. That'll be fun in the recording. So AJ, sort of introduce Zoom for those who maybe are new to it or haven't used it much. Get us up to speed on Zoom at the 30,000 foot level, and then I'll run through our sort of our step-by-step walkthrough of setting up breakout rooms and how to use those.
Yeah, Zoom is an online way for people to meet via video. You can also do it just audio. People can actually use their telephone, the old school telephone, and call into a pre-scheduled Zoom meeting. But its strength is in video meeting. Scott and I we use Zoom every single day, all the time. And so it really has become very, very popular. Yeah, for several years now. It's very, very popular. It's very simple to use. And the beauty of it also is that they have a free account. And a lot of churches and groups are already leveraging Zoom just at the free level. It has some basic limitations that aren't terribly hard to overcome. We'll get to those later. But yeah, it is a way for you to see and hear people and really being able to connect virtually, especially in a time that we can't meet together.
All right. So I still want to know if you've been confused about what breakout rooms are and how to set them up. Let us know in the comments. And without further ado, let's just roll the pre-recorded tape here on how to get these things set up. Good?
Let's do it. And we'll be moderating comments here on our live feed as well. So if you have, we'll be able to type as you're watching the video. Roll tape, Scott.
All right, here we go. All right, so this is actually kind of a fun thing that we're doing. AJ and I are learning new features to Zoom just like everyone else. AJ, how long have we been using Zoom? A long time, right?
Yeah, a couple years.
So breakout rooms is something that you may have heard about, AJ, on the Facebook lately. It's something I had heard a lot about. It's not a tool that you and I have really had reason to use because all of our meetings have always been, for TMG, they're smaller meetings, so there's not really a use case for breakout rooms. But I'm really excited about this feature. And so AJ is new to breakout rooms. I am not as new to them because I've figured out how they work, but I'm not an expert. But that's why I want to walk you through how to use these, because if I can figure this out in a handful of minutes, anybody can. So AJ, would you like for me to walk you through how to set up breakout rooms?
I would love it, and I will be playing the real role of the confused other user. So
yeah, so pastor, if you're listening to this, church leader, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know how to set this up, you're in AJ's. But AJ said, before I hit record on this, I hope I don't get annoyed. And I said, you know what? Get annoyed. I hope you get annoyed, and so that you can ask questions. Okay.
I'm the real guy.
All right. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm going to try to explain what I'm doing. So if you're watching this and you're going, wow, he is explaining everything that he's pressing, it's for the benefit of those who are only listening to the audio version of this later. But hopefully, maybe this would be a good thing to watch. So if you're listening to the audio version of this, go to malfersgroup.com/33, right? Is that where we're at? 33? And you'll be able to watch the recording of this and see for yourself how to set this up. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. You want to log into your Zoom account. Now, I want to be really clear. You need to have a pro account to enable breakout rooms and really maximize all the features that Zoom has. Although there's a really good chance that in your church, you might only need one pro account if you use the features that I'm about to show you. It is $14.99 a month plus tax. That is the best investment, I think, that you might spend in building virtual small groups. Mm-hmm. So definitely worth it. But you do need a pro account. So once you're signed in and you're looking at this home screen, there I am right there. You can see my personal meeting account ID. Awesome. You click on settings down here under personal. You'll click on settings. And then there's three options: meeting, recording, and telephone. You need to be in the meeting section, which is the default one anyway. You'll scroll down, and there's all kinds of features that you may not know about. You can, require a password for participants joining by phone, or embed a password, which can be nice. You've heard about Zoom bombing people. If you publicly publish a Zoom meeting link, you could have people you don't really want in your Zoom meeting hopping in. So there are all kinds of things you can do to help protect that. But what I'm focusing on, you want to keep scrolling until you get all the way down to in meeting advanced. And it is the top option right there, breakout room. And you'll need to hit the little toggle switch that's next to where it says breakout room to turn that feature on in your settings. And that you then beneath that, there is a allow host to assign participants to breakout rooms
when scheduling. What that means is you'll actually have the ability to assign invited participants into breakout rooms prior to the meeting itself. So that will save you some time. So if you've got 50 people in small groups in your church and you want to split them up into 10 groups or into 5 groups, however many groups you have, you can actually pre-assign those people into breakout rooms prior to the meeting, which will save you a little bit of time in the meeting. And the nice thing is, if it's a recurring meeting, then when you set it up, AJ, that one time, you set it up one time, then you don't have to redo it every week. They're already assigned into those breakout rooms every week. So are you with me so far? Any questions so far, AJ?
Let's give a couple of example uses right now. Just a really quick overview of some example uses so that the people that are setting this up on their own would understand, like, what would I be doing and why.
Let's walk through just scheduling a meeting, okay? To give an example. So I'm going to click up here, schedule a meeting up at the very top of the screen. There's an option to schedule a meeting. So I'm going to click schedule a meeting, and let's call this First Baptist Sunday School Hour. So let's say you want to get, maybe where a church still does Sunday school or whatever. And it's going to be, I'm going to click on the little calendar icon here, and I'm going to pick Sunday, April 5th is when I'm going to start this. And it's going to be at, 9 a.m. for an hour. And this is a recurring meeting. It's going to happen weekly on Sundays. We're going to keep this going for, let's do 20 occurrences. Okay. Now, I'm not going to require registration, although I could. I'm going to turn the host, and you'll see here under video, you can be sure that the host video is turned on. You could turn off participant video, or you can turn it on. Either way, you want to allow both computer and telephone audio. I think it's helpful to enable join before host. That way people can enter the meeting even if you're running a little bit late. Now, breakout room pre-assign. So I can import from CSV. There's an option here to import from CSV all the name and the email address of all the people that I want to invite. And once I do that, I can split them up into rooms. So here I can go ahead and create my rooms, breakout rooms, breakout room 1, breakout room 2, 3, 4, and I can either import from CSV, AJ, or I can add participants. So let's see, AJ Matthew. What happens if I do that? Oops. Oh, I got to enter their email address. So I'm going to AJ Matthew. Now you all know AJ's email address if you didn't before. It's ajmatthew@malfirsgroup.com. He doesn't mind you knowing it. Save. Oh, I got to hit enter first. There you go.
You can send PayPal donations to that.
So here we got AJ, and he's in breakout room 1. You can rename these as well. So breakout room 1, I could name it Bob's Sunday school class. Breakout room 2, and that is sensitive. This is in real time, folks. Bob's Sunday school class. There we go. Man, you got to be careful with that. That is.
Were you hitting enter? And
I was hitting enter. Yeah. Bob's class.
The third time, the name got shorter.
There we go.
You saved it. Okay, now you
hit.
add
Yeah.
back.
Be sure you hit save. Don't hit enter. Look at that. We're learning things as we go. malfirsgroup.com. on that, you want to hit enter. That's tricky. If you're changing the name of the class, hit save. If you're adding participants, hit enter. That is super tricky. Now you can know mine too. sball@malforsgroup.com. Enter. Now hit save.
So it also said you can create up to 50 rooms for a total of 200 participants. So I thought that the pro account had a 100 participant limit, but this is saying we could have a total of 200 people. So I wonder, do those jive?
Yeah, I'm confused on that. I'm just going to be completely honest. I thought that I would make the assumption that you can have 100 people, because that's the number of people you can have in a meeting. But it says up to 200. I would just operate off that 100 number just to be safe. I'm not exactly sure why they would say 200 one place and then 100 on the other, but
yeah. So let's talk about if we're operating under the 100 participant assumption, then let's just kind of talk about what your options are if you're a church larger than 100, or if you have 100, more than 100 that you would expect in Sunday school on a typical Sunday morning.
Then you would want to create, you could do that a couple of different ways. Have more than one Sunday school hour. There's no requirement for it to be at 9 a.m. on Sunday, right? You could do Sunday school hour at 6 p.m. on Monday, right? You could do it at different times if you're the only person running it, or you can have you could set up different meetings. So you might have 4 different hosts running 4 different meetings, each with 100 people in them. So you might have 400 people then. But you just want to be sure you send the right link to the right person so that they get assigned into their own class. Now, AJ, let me show you.
You cannot, however, you cannot schedule more than one meeting during the same time on one account, though. I think
that is correct. No. It would have to be different. At that point, you would need 4 accounts.
But you could do an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. If you wanted everything on Sunday morning, you're just going to have to put them back to back.
That's right. Correct. All right. Let me show you, AJ, what it looks like to send people into breakout rooms, because this is another thing that I think is confusing for folks. I'm going to share my screen here.
So we just created a meeting. The invitation would be sent out via email to all the participants with your Zoom meeting link and the time. Mm-hmm. At that time, they would all connect into the meeting, and then we're going to pick up at that point now. Right, Scott?
Correct. Now, so then the nice thing to remember is that you can share your screen if you are running a group or a class and you've got some video curriculum. I'm not going to pull up my browser just to save us a little bit of time, but you can, click share screen, find your browser, it'll pop up here as one of these share screen options. Just make sure you select the option to share your computer sound. It's really important. You can also share a file. So if you have, a file saved in Dropbox that's a video file or something like that, you could share that as well. And again, just be sure that you share computer sound. That way they hear it. So you can watch curriculum together as a whole group. All 100 people that are on the meeting can watch everything straight from your computer. This is really helpful if you have somebody who has a better, stronger internet connection than someone else. It can be... you need a good internet connection to stream that video through Zoom. But once that portion is done, or maybe you're not doing video, maybe you as the pastor or church leader, you're teaching the lesson to the whole group and you're running a Bible study. However it is you're doing it, doesn't matter. But you can have your teaching time with all 100 people, whether it's through video or through one person teaching it. And then you can send them to breakout rooms. So here we are in our First Baptist Sunday School Hour group here, and there we are. We got Bob's class. Remember, we had our trouble getting that named, but there it is. It showed up, and there's AJ. We had assigned him to that room, and there he is. So AJ is in Bob's class, and I could move him if I wanted him to breakout room 2, 3, or 4, even within the app itself. Now I can rename this if I wanted to the different names, and it's easier actually to rename them here than it is in on the website. But at any rate, when it's time to head to groups, I can click Open All Rooms. So AJ now is going to get a little notification to go to his class, to Bob's class. And as the administrator, I can join, you can see any of these classes, I can join them. So right now, since AJ's in there alone, I'll go join AJ in Bob's class. So now that I'm in Bob's class, there's AJ, and we would have our maybe Bob was teaching the class, or maybe now we're just in a discussion time or whatever. But when it's time for that part to be over, I can go back, click breakout rooms again, click this little button that says broadcast a message to all, say time to wrap up. We are going back to the main meeting room in 1 minute. And AJ, give me a thumbs up if you got that message. All right. So now I'm going to click close all rooms, and it's going to automatically move AJ with, if he waits all the way till that 60-second timer runs out, it'll automatically move him. Or he can click the button to click return to main session, which is what I'm doing right now. And so here we are back in the main session meeting room, and now we could close in prayer, and I can end the meeting for everybody. But this is a way that you can have just one paid account and have 100 people, or if you trust Zoom saying you can maybe have 200 people potentially, I'm not sure, but up to 50 different breakout rooms. And so, yeah, this is a great option for keeping the cost down and still being able to build that sense of community through video meetings. And if you think about families maybe joining in together, you might have a couple together, so you might have 100 participants, but 2 people are sharing a camera together. That exponentially sort of adds the number of people who are actually participating, because 2 or 3 people might be huddled around one webcam or one phone or whatever for the meeting. So that's just a brief walkthrough of how the breakout rooms function works on Zoom. Okay, now we're back. We're back live here. So I'm just going to be really honest with you. Like, I had heard about the breakout room function. It's not something we've ever needed to use for TMG, so it's not something that I was overly familiar with. I spent the time, educated myself on how it worked. It wasn't like super obvious. It's really important that you make sure, for example, that you're on the most updated version of Zoom. You need to click and make sure that your Zoom account, like the program installed on your computer, is fully up to date. You got to make sure that you go into your settings and activate all the settings so that the break rooms are there. So it's not just like, oh, I buy a Zoom account and then I've got all these features. You actually have to go in there and set it up. And I hopefully I know that was like 15 minutes of just me talking and walking through, but I hope that it showed you sort of the use case for using it for groups and also how to get that set up for you. So AJ, as you were watching that, what questions came to your mind? And then also, if you're one of the lots of folks that are hopping on right now watching live, what questions do you have about how to use Zoom to run either Sunday school or groups or whatever your process is right now? What questions do you have? We'll try to answer them. So AJ, what are you thinking?
I since it's been over an hour, I don't remember, and I didn't have my audio on, so I don't remember what we actually talked about in the pre-recorded video. Did we make clear kind of some examples of how you would set this up and what you would do with it?
Yes, we did. So we talked about how you could use it. You could use it for groups. You could use it for Sunday school class. You can either share a video curriculum, or you could teach a class and then split people up into discussion groups. So those are all there are lots of different takes on this, but still, I think dollars to donuts, this is the best way. Another question, AJ, that you actually had before we went live is why not just let everyone in your church use free accounts?
Sure.
And have groups sort of schedule their own things. And I think there's two reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. Maybe more than 2, but at least 2. First, they're going to be restricted to 40 minutes. So those groups are not going to be able to meet for longer than 40 minutes, which most groups meet longer than 40 minutes. So that's going to be frustrating. 2, and we have had our own experience with this, managing all the different links. So if you've got 10 different groups and they're supposed to be managing their own links for, here's this Zoom link and here's that Zoom link, and then you're going to get people contacting you being like, hey, I'm a part of Bob's group. Do you know the link for Bob's class? And you're like, no, I don't know the link for Bob's class. You're going to have to ask Bob. And that just gets confusing. If you can have all of your groups use one link, and you have sort of one meeting time or a couple different meeting times, and there's one link depending on what your hour is, the Wednesday night small groups, the Thursday night small groups, it enables you to have the full force of Zoom's, power in terms of length and features and all of that for $15, and it's one link to manage. So all of those reasons, I think it makes sense to do it this way. Chad has a great question. I'm going to broadcast it. Chad's question is, if I have a pro account, do you have to pay extra to add breakout rooms? That's a great question. And the answer to that is no, you do not have to pay extra. That's included in the pro feature. And so there are things called Zoom rooms. Zoom rooms are not the same as breakout rooms. Zoom rooms are like if you set up a room in an office space and it has like some very pro things, like you're using special tools to set up like a special conference room, that is a Zoom room, and that does cost extra. Zoom breakout rooms are a included feature in every pro account. So that's a really great question, Chad. Are there any other
function? Are there a function within a Zoom meeting?
That's right. If you have all those settings checked, then it is an automatic function that is there.
Yep.
All right. If there are any other questions about Zoom, feel free to add them in the comments and we'll answer them as they come up. But let's move on to the second tool we feel like. So the first challenge, AJ, is just getting groups together to meet. And Zoom is a great platform for that. It's a very stable platform. It's a really affordable platform, and it's very full-featured. I think we've used Skype for a few things, AJ. I think it's fair to say Skype quality is not Zoom quality.
No, it's not the same.
It's not the same. So we recommend Zoom for that. But the second function of groups, AJ, is group communication. And I know you could use just a Facebook group, but a lot of people don't want to be on Facebook. They're not on Facebook. They don't want to be on Facebook. They don't want to have their arm twisted now to get on Facebook just because there's this COVID-19 crisis going on. And to be frank, there are some things that Facebook groups don't do, and some features that they don't have. And so an off Facebook option that we really like is something called Band. So AJ, you and I are both relatively new to Band, but again, do you want to give a 30,000 foot level overview of what Band can be used for?
Yeah, some of its features, you might even think of it as sort of an offline private Facebook. So it allows you to bring your group, your contacts together in your group, and it has a similar or at least familiar sort of feed feature that you experience here on Facebook. And but then some of the more powerful features that it has would be things such as a calendar. So you could schedule events and be able to manage. It has resources too, right, Scott? Could you add? You can add documents and things to it as well.
Yeah,
I'm remembering right.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can share things like that. So if you had in any other kind of resource information, maybe questions for a study group or anything like that. So sharing documents, having a shared calendar, and then the feed for being able to communicate things, just whatever needs might be, prayer requests and other things. So I think it's really nice, and it's free.
Absolutely. John has a good question here before I show you sort of our walkthrough on how to use Band. John had a quick question about Zoom, which is, can you explain how to put documents and pictures, etc. on Zoom? And can only administrators do that, or can participants? You can enable participants to share their screen, but generally by default, it's just the host of the meeting that can share their screen. As far as sharing files, you can share files within the chat function as well. So you can share a video, or you could share a link to a Dropbox file or something like that within the chat feature. So you can share the screen, which would enable everyone to see it, or within the chat function, you can actually attach a file or link to a file so that everyone could see that. So that's a really great question, John, and thanks for asking. Okay, let me switch now. I'm going to show you the pre-recorded thing we did here on walking through very briefly how to use Band. Okay. All right, let me walk you through how Band works. So I've got a test group. Whoops, let me share my screen. You seeing that okay, AJ? Is that popping up for you?
Not yet. There we go.
How about now? There we go.
Got
All
it.
right. So I've already got a test group set up here, but let me show you briefly how to create one. So you would tap in the app, you tap create a band, which just means create a group, faith groups, and then we could say test group 2 TMG. And you can add a photo. You can choose from an album, or I just choose from default photos here. And this group, man, it's couples. It's a couples group. So got to do those heart hands right there. Look at that. Super cheesy. Okay. And all right. So then I can, well, I don't want you to see all my contacts' phone numbers, but I can invite people. By default, it's going to let me invite folks via text message or Facebook Messenger, email. I can copy the link if I want to do that, or I can send it through other apps. Let's go into the group that I already made. Let's see here. I'll go to test group TMG. I had already got AJ in there. So I can post in the group just like you would on Facebook. This is a lot like a Facebook post. And so why use this versus Facebook? Some folks just don't want to be on Facebook, right? So that would be one reason why. You can go live in this group, but it's just going to be one-on-one. It's not going to be like a group video thing. You can attach a file, which is not something you can do everywhere in Facebook. There are places you can attach files in Facebook, I think, but not everywhere. But you can attach files here, like if you had group PDF that you wanted to share or something like that. You can share a photo. You can go live. You can add groups. There's all kinds of fun things that you can do. Add a sticker, create a poll, add an event, create a to-do list, create a sign-up sheet. All of these things that might be really, really, really valuable for a group to be able to have. AJ, I'm thinking this is going to help facilitate a lot of group stuff. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, it's definitely a good communications point for everybody.
So let's just say we've got, we're going to add an event. So the event is going to be small group meeting. And the location we're not going to add here. In the description, maybe we're going to add the Zoom link, copy and paste. Oops. Zoom link here. And when is it going to be? It's going to be on Sunday at 9 a.m. And you can have people RSVP or set up a reminder or whatever. Boom. Attach. Done. Now we've got that's been added, and it's going to show up in the feed. Now you also see it. It'll show up in the calendar on the 5th. Look, there's small group meeting. It's there. So you can have a calendar together. You can chat. You can go into the chat function here. So you can chat with individual folks, or you can chat with the whole group, which is nice. You can have posts, which is going to be similar to what you're familiar with on Facebook. But again, you don't have to have Facebook. People can just use Band, which is nice for folks that want to do it. You can access this on the desktop, or you can access it on the phone. You're going to get alerts when people chat with you, like you would a text message or anything like that. And I believe that you can manage the different notification settings that you get. So we think that the ability to add a to-do list, add a sign-up sheet, add a calendar, all of these things are really group. Oh, look at that. AJ is so excited about our next meeting. Holla, look at that reaction. So happy. Me too. I can reply. Me too. So I think this is a really great option. It's completely free. It's not going to cost your church a single dime, and it's a really great way for churches to be able to create online groups in between the meetings themselves, which we think Zoom is the best platform. In between those meetings, this is a really great option for creating community and dialogue for your groups in Sunday school classes. And you could even, if your church is small enough, maybe everybody in your church can be on one band as well. Okay, so I hope that was helpful walkthrough on band. So we think that if you use these two tools in tandem, you're looking at a $15 a month expense for Zoom, a $0 a month expense for band. And I love, like right now, the critical needs that band can help with would be things like who's picking up groceries for a person in your group who is in need, who really shouldn't be getting out. You can assign that sign-up sheet. You can do a to-do list. These are things that don't have, those tools aren't available in Facebook groups. So it not only keeps people off Facebook when people don't want to be on Facebook, it has tools that Facebook does not have for groups. So highly recommend Band. It's 100% free. It's a great tool. I would recommend considering adding someone on staff from your church to every band for a couple of reasons. One, for upline communication. So that way, if there is a need in the group that needs to be handled by a pastor or by a staff person, then there's an easy way for that to get communicated. The other reason is accountability. Yeah, we trust our folks with chat rooms and things like that, but it's a chat room, and you want to be able to supervise some of that communication. So it'd be wise to have a staff person or an elder or a deacon or a leader, someone in authority in every band, so that you can just be monitoring that communication and make sure that nothing's going on that shouldn't be going on.
Actually, then even direct questions, you could just tag that person in a question. Say, hey, I'm not sure. Let's ask, Sarah, and just tag Sarah in it from the staff, and then maybe get a direct answer.
That's right. So we hope that this has been helpful. We got one more thing we want to tackle today. I know we're already 37 minutes into this thing, but we just wanted to make this very, very practical on how you can use online tools. We're recommending Zoom and Band for this. If you guys have questions, you can add them in the comments. AJ, the last thing we want to talk about, and we're going to go more in depth very soon. We'll do another episode specifically on assimilation practices in a COVID-19 world. But we want to talk just in a very niche way about connecting new people into groups. So a lot of folks, I've met with a lot of pastors through our huddles, and a lot of them already have divided up their current attenders into groups, but you might be having new folks attending your church online that never have been to your church or were peripherally connected to your church before. How can we be recruiting those folks to join groups now?
Yeah, so we know who our groups people already are, and so hopefully you have a good system for at least knowing who is are your regular attenders, and maybe they have become members, and that's where you manage that. So, by default, we can separate out the people that we know are connected, and it leaves us with a list of people that are not connected. And so that's going to require another means of communicating with them. Now, one way that you can reach out to them is the way that you're already reaching everybody, and simply include that group. And that's what I think is probably one of the most important things that you should be doing anyway. From your broadcast that you're doing right now, your virtual worship service broadcast, and even before this and after this, hopefully you'll continue to do it, you really should always be trying to connect people into the next best step for them. Mm-hmm. And that would be connecting with your church in some form, no matter how you do that, whether it's small groups or it's Sunday school or some other sort of connection where they can build relationships with people. That is an important communications piece from your Sunday morning gathering time. That's the opportunity that you have to speak with everybody at once and making it clear what they should do next and why. So use that opportunity now for this. Be talking about your virtual small group opportunity, and especially be talking about why this is a great time for them to get connected. I mean, this is an unprecedented time for us in this generation, in this century, for sure, of experiencing something like this. And so, we're dealing with a lot of people that are just really disconnected. There's a lot of fear. There's isolation. This is prime for people to be connected in groups. And so, that's what we want to do. And maybe people might say, oh, well, it's just online, but it's a way for people to talk with one another, to be able to work through a shared experience. And it's a great way to help cope with some of the things that we're feeling emotionally right now. So make that clear to your people. Have that next best step for them to take, and point them to an easy resource that that they can either get in contact with somebody, or whatever automated system maybe you will have already developed on through a page on your website. You'll go to ourchurch.com/groups, and there's a way there that you can communicate with Jim or Jane, and they will get you connected into a group. So the communication thing during your weekend gathering time, I think, is job one right now. Don't you think so, Scott?
I think it's really important. And I think what we've got to realize now, especially with yesterday, the president coming out and saying, look, we're going to be at this thing through at least April 30th. And we all recognize it could end up being longer than that. Is we have to kind of stop making excuses, number one, and also stop apologizing. Go, well, normally we have groups at such and such time and in such and such way. Or, man, we're just overwhelmed and we don't know. People want you right now to have a plan. And so just pivot. If I go to your home screen right now on your website, and a lot of you have already done this, but if it says, hey, our meeting times are at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., and here's our location, well, that's a little out of touch. Right now, that isn't where your services are. Your services are online. So maybe our services are online at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Same thing with your groups. If I go to your groups page right now and it says, well, this is meeting at, the Smith's house and the Joneses' house, and you've got these groups listed and they're all in-person groups, that's out of touch. It's time to pivot those pages, because now the group strategy is an online group strategy, and you can always archive that page on your website and go back to that version when this thing is over. But it's time right now to pivot right now on your groups page and allow people to be able to sign up for a group right now that's meeting this week online through Zoom. Get them in a band, because people are struggling. Like, they're anxious, they're afraid, they're tired, they're scared, and they need community right now more than ever. So don't twiddle your thumbs on this. Like, have a group strategy that you can get people signed up into a group right now, and adjust that on your pages. So don't just talk about it, but adjust your website to reflect this new strategy.
Yeah, I think up until this point, the reason you had probably a relatively small percentage of engagement in groups is because people really didn't feel like they needed it. It always takes something for somebody to go, I think that's valuable to me. And that time has come. We have this catalyst happening in which groups are going to be more important to people. They're going to be seeking that level of community. And so I think the church has got to very quickly, I don't want to say just capitalize on it, but make it available. I mean, this is an important part of the church. This is the Acts 2 church. And so this is the way that we can do it. We can be thankful for the technology that's allowing us to be able to do this, that this is happening today and not even 5 or 10 years ago, because we had a lot more limitations then. So, this hasn't taken God by surprise, and he has us prepared to handle this in a different way than we did a few weeks ago. So do that. Take advantage of this. I really, really believe this is something that is going to explode the church worldwide. I think there's going to be an unseen level of connectedness because we have the technology to do this, and we can handle this during this time. So do that. Make sure your church is ready. Relationships are going to be built in this space, in this virtual space, that will transfer back into real life later. Because once people develop a bond, it's not going to matter that later we're actually getting together in person. In fact, that's going to be probably some pretty cool family reunions, right? Whenever maybe a new virtual group has never been together in person, and that first time they're able to, what a sweet time that's going to be.
Yeah.
So make that available. I really think this is going to be a point in time we're going to look back and go, that was an explosion in the church. And so here, another thing though, Scott, that we're going to find ourselves behind in a lot of our leadership scenarios in churches, and that's the availability of leaders for these groups. So another critical need right now is going to be calling up the people that maybe they weren't ready a few weeks ago, but you're going to have to get them ready in a hurry. Yeah. So maybe you had 5 or 10 groups in your church, and that was 20% of your population engaged. Well, if you've got another 40 or 60% that want to get engaged right now, who's going to need those groups? You can certainly make the other ones larger, but that's probably not going to take care of all of your needs. So pastors, right now, you're going to need to be schedule a meeting, invite some leaders to it that you think maybe have the potential, and get that started.
Listen, I'm having an on-the-fly idea. This is always dangerous, especially since we're live on the internet.
We're live, yeah.
What if we did this? Okay, now you're seeing AJ and I's relationship in real life unfold right before your eyes. What if we hosted, AJ, instead of these fine folks who are listening and watching, taking this training and then trying to translate it, what if we hosted a small group leader training, teaching them how to use Band, how to use Zoom? Yeah. They could sign up their leaders, and then we could split them up into breakout rooms, and so they could talk about what's the implications going to be specifically to our church. Hey, if you'd be interested in training like that, let us know in the comments. We'll set something up. We want to help you train more leaders because you need leaders trained right now. The need for leaders is right now. So if you're interested in that, let us know in the comments, and maybe we'll get something arranged like that because we'd love to facilitate that kind of a training for you.
Sounds good.
All right, let's wrap this up, AJ, because we've gone a long time. All right, here is our recommended small group strategy. Number 1, use Zoom for group meetings. We believe it's the best platform out there right now. A lot of churches are already using it. A lot of folks now are already using it for work, so they're relatively familiar with it. So use Zoom for the group meetings. 2, use Band for group communication strategy. It's really, really good. It's going to have tools that Facebook groups don't have, and it keeps people off of Facebook that don't want to be on there. And 3, the third thing we talked about today is you got to get moving on a robust small group strategy today, like right now. If you haven't implemented these things, now is the time to implement these things. It's Monday, so you got plenty of time to do it. Get rolling on this. Now, the last thing I would want to ask is we hope that this training that we've done today, this podcast, if you're listening to it later, will you please share this? If it's a podcast recording, share it with someone. If you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, will you share it with a pastor? There's a lot of confusion about how to use Zoom, and we wanted to put something together that was really practical. So will you please share this resource with other pastors to help them out, to help them get started using Zoom and using Band? That would be a huge help to us because you know pastors and leaders that we don't know. And so it helps them, serves them, and helps us out too if you share this. We love you guys so much. We appreciate you hanging on. Man, a lot of you have been hanging on here the whole hour, and we would just really appreciate that. And we will see you live. And listen, if there's enough of you that want us to run a small group leader training for your churches, we'll do that too. So we love you, appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.